All right, thanks everybody for downloading the newest edition of the CoNcast. I'm Josh, back again as always. With me today, I've got Tittles and DP yet again, and for the first time, we've got a special guest. Jav is joining us today. If you've been around the site anytime in the last 15 years, you probably know of Jav, and yeah, he's got a colorful history that I'm going to let Tittles talk about just a little bit so we can embarrass him while he's here.
Hi, I'm Tiddles, and I remember Jav when he used to write embarrassing poetry. But that was after he was a kind of a dick for a long time and just posted rubbish. And then was the first, and I think quite possibly the only person to have his post count somewhere in the 900s or something, or the thousands even, get made completely negative, so he had to post 1,000 times or so to get back to zero, which was great, and it made us all giggle. But he turned out okay, possibly, unless you get on his bad side, in which case he'll say just the most terrible words about you. Let's see if I can find some of Jav's amazing angst poetry from his younger years, because these are the story of your life, of everybody's life. They're just everything, man. They're
Such
just
raw
everything.
emotion.
Why don't you talk about that? You remember your own life.
Vaguely, actually. There are bits and pieces. It's kind of hazy. I don't know why I came to this site. I don't even know why I'm still here.
I think Joey brought you to the site, didn't he? Or was it the other way around?
No, he brought me. He was all, hey, you're playing Final Fantasy VI. You should check out this site. And I was like, oh, why? This is stupid. And then I ended up going anyways. Yeah, the wisdom of my, what was I, like 12 at the time?
God, really?
I don't remember.
Oh, that's so terrible.
It was 2001? I don't remember what old I was.
Well, I will point out
times.
two things that I just looked up on the site while we were talking about that. One, apparently Jav is not the only person who ended up with negative 1,000 posts. There was some other person that we did it to at some point that I don't remember at all. I don't even remember this person's username, so I don't know.
Your uniqueness has been stripped from you.
I know. In hindsight, if I'd only known that we'd end up here in 2013, I never would have done that to anybody else. And the other thing is, yes, Jav signed up in March of 2001, and his current post count is just a shade over 2,000. So that means that he made it up to almost 1,000 posts, got reset down to negative 1,000, and has since posted 3,000 more times in the past decade plus.
Most of that was within like the first year or two after the negative reset, though. Because
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time I've been to the forum.
That's kind of how it is for everybody.
And every
really.
single
None of us can
post,
remember the last time we posted at the forums, man.
and every single post that Jav made was completely, the highest intellectual quality and very polite and very well thought out.
And I never ever made fun of anyone on the forums ever.
Nope.
That's what
Nope.
chat's
At least
for.
he didn't post how much he liked Fisherman's Horizon. Like, you can say anything.
I was going to wait to bring that up until the ringtone portion, Tiddles.
Hey,
Oh,
spoilers,
there's
spoilers.
plenty of time for Fisherman's Horizon.
There's
No,
always
there
time
is-
for Fisherman's
there is
Horizon.
not.
Well, there's plenty of time to hate it. Let me just say this before we move on. Just light the wick for her. Just start firing her. The wax will pour from her. It's a beautiful sentiment that I think we can all.
I kind of want to high five myself.
Do you still have scissors stuck in your ceiling, by the way?
Yes, I do.
Are they the same scissors?
Yes, they are.
Jav, as you no doubt know, we start off every podcast talking about the games or stuff that we've been doing since the last podcast. We'll let you kick it off. What have you been playing lately?
An obscene amount of Tomb Raider, and as always, just retarded amounts of StarCraft.
The newest Tomb Raider, I assume you mean, yeah?
Yeah, no, actually, like the first one on the PS. Of course. What
Well,
kind of douchebag do you
sometimes people replay things. Just checking.
I mean, to be
Nobody
fair,
replays the old Tomb Raiders, though.
you're on a website that specializes in games from mostly the mid-90s, so it's not all that unreasonable
Yeah.
of a supposition, I suppose.
Yeah,
I-
Josh.
But DP said it, so shut up, DP. You're wrong.
Yeah, shut up, DP.
How is it? I mean, it's been getting a lot of praise. What are your thoughts on that?
It's actually a lot of fun. I think they could have given it the working title of Tomb Raider and the anything bad that could possibly happen is about to happen to her. Because it's pretty much a game of just stuff going wrong.
Yeah, like everything
Yeah.
that they show in all the trailers makes it look like a torture porn movie.
I'll say this, I haven't seen a girl get beat that bad since Rihanna.
Oh, I like it.
I might actually get this now. It sounds quite good.
Oh, jeez.
I want to just make the reference, does she get breast cancer? But that will just make me sound like a horrible person unless you've actually seen the
But yeah, you've gone and done it.
Parade videos. Well, yeah, but I'm explaining it now, so you can
Yeah, but
back
I'm not
that
going to
up a bit.
link to it, so...
Yeah, well, okay. There's these guys who Retsu Parade make fun of
Oh.
Let's Plays, and well, maybe they'll do a branch making fun of terrible podcasts soon. We can only hope. But they also mocked some videos from a cable TV channel in the 90s from this strange old chap who used to review games, and he kind of expressed his desire for Eidos to make a Tomb Raider game in which Lara Croft gets breast cancer, citing "Imagine the drama" as his best reason, and also talking about her front-loaded anvils, whatever that means. But yeah, I guess that's probably the one awful thing that doesn't happen to her somehow, unless Eidos finally took up the challenge.
That's going to be in the DLC, actually.
It's just one of her custom skins. It's like emo treated Laura.
Oh,
Oh
God.
no!
Oh no! Oh, back out!
You can't cut that. It's
We-
raw. It's truth.
We are really elevating the discourse today so far.
Well,
And
you
it's we did invite Jav, so we
brought
had
this-
to know it was going to happen.
Brought it upon ourselves.
DP, are you playing anything so we can move on gently?
I am actually. I actually just I started playing Pikmin 2. Pikmin 1, well the original, it wasn't 1 at the time, but the original Pikmin was one of the first games I played on the GameCube, which was the first home console I actually owned for several different rather sad reasons.
You
Such a
child.
small child.
So yes, I really liked the original, and so I kind of always wanted to play the second one, but it's very expensive and like hard to come by. So anyhow, I only finally just got around to it, and I'm liking it so far. I'm not very far into it, but
I heard praise about Pikmin, and I never really understood what the heck it is. So what the heck is it?
well, it's basically like I imagine someone saw a bunch of ants and was like, "Oh, that's really cool. They can carry stuff that's way bigger than them," and then was like, "OMG, let's make a game about that." Anyhow, the idea is that you've got this mass of these small creatures, and in small groups they can't really do a whole lot, but if you've got large numbers, you can fight these fairly large enemies or get through these fairly complex obstacles and stuff. And so the puzzles are actually fairly unique. They're not terribly in-depth puzzles, but there are some sort of puzzly type things where you have to get to new areas, and it's kind of cool because these everything's on a minute scale. So if you come across like a soda can, the soda can is like many times the size of one of the Pikmin, say. So the atmosphere is kind of cool, and the gameplay is pretty fun, and it's just like a unique idea. So
Let me tell you what I think of that. It's a glimmer on crimson, a glitter in the dark, but it
Oh.
fails to be admired by the one within us all.
See, now I'm interested.
That one vaguely sounded like he was writing about the Allspark from Transformers.
Yeah, that was during my blue period.
So So what is Tittles playing so we can stop having him quote Jav poetry for a bit?
Oh, you think that's going to stop? You think that's going to stop?
Well,
It's gonna
hopefully
be a
you've integrated it
recurring gag.
into whatever you're doing.
I'm still doing Sonic stuff. I've got new music in from Valley Bell, which is amazing. I'm still also playing Bioshock Infinite, but I've really played about an hour of it since last time, so not much more to say about that other than it's still cool, and I still hate how long it is between checkpoints.
I think you
Which
mean
is why I haven't got
Infinite.
Infinite!
You know, one of these days
Innovative.
you're probably gonna have to go back and do Dragon Age with all the DLC, right?
Yeah, it's totally going to happen, man. I'm all over that. I might actually do that, because once I'm done with Bioshock, and hopefully I get a Sonic release out, I might finally just spend some time playing all the stuff I haven't really played that I wanted to play.
Well, you should actually go play the original Bioshock.
Yeah, I did start it, and I never really got into it. Maybe it's worth another go.
It
didn't
is.
kind of. I kind of like bright sunshine and blue skies in games. I don't know.
That doesn't
Well,
make
because you're
sense.
such a cheery person in general.
Well, yeah, I need something that contrasts with my innate personality. So, if I wanted to go and go in some underwater city where it's always dark, I could just live in my own soul, man. Instead of playing a game, I can escape in
Not
Infinite.
that poetry, is it?
It's beautiful and it's sunny and I can watch the shimmer give a glow, watch its reflection spin. Just don't lock the glow away.
Wow. You are really good at working that into actual conversation.
Yeah, that was kind of lucky. As it happens.
Thoroughly
I'm not even
impressed.
mad. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Well done.
That was so good that DP didn't actually realize that was more Jap poetry for a minute.
I didn't. Like,
That
I
was
didn't
solid
realize
work.
it Right away.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I'm sure I wrote those with the express purpose of trolling myself decades later.
You didn't have that level of foresight back then.
Whatever you need.
Didn't
to
I?
believe, man.
No.
Didn't I?
No, you didn't.
Aw.
You did not. Me, I was cleaning up my office at home over the weekend, and I found...
This sounds thrilling.
Yes, I found my PSP under a stack of papers where it had laid for, since I came back from PAX, because that was the last time I had it out. And I flipped the switch on it to see if the battery still had a charge, and not only did it have a charge, it was still holding in memory my FF1 game. So I ended up picking it up and playing through the rest of the Earthgift Shrine in FF1 while I was there. And then yesterday I actually started up Crisis Core for the first time in probably 9 or 10 months, which is a game that I've never beaten because I only have my PSP out pretty much when I'm on a plane. And now that I'm on a plane with a baby, I don't really get to play games anyway. I just get to sit there and be miserable. So I took about an hour and a half figuring out where I'd left off with Crisis Core, and then about 15 minutes actually playing it once I figured out where that was. So anyway, you've probably worked out the reason why Jav is here already, especially if you've hung around chat anytime in the last 5 years. The reason
So
that
will
we
be all the
Havoc
people
on
who come
everyone.
to chat and don't listen to the podcast. And
I'm trying for synergy here, Tittles. Yeah,
I hated that game.
you have to.
oh man, but the birds and the trucks.
I don't know.
You guys
Promote
no.
are so mad at me.
And I got exploded, and then we went in the trucks. Did we ever even get? We did get to the trucks, and you
Got to
ruined
the
that as
truck.
well, didn't
Yeah, I
we?
did that too.
Yeah.
I parked my truck in the middle of the passage, and then I
Yeah.
started stealing all the objectives.
Oh yeah, we kept spawning buggies in unlikely places. Then we play the bit of episode 1 once where you're in the kind of reactor, and there's
Yeah,
the
and we
big
were
kind of
spawning buggies
ball
in there.
Yeah, and you drive the buggy into it, and you kind of go into like no man's land and disappear forever. It's pretty awesome.
Well, now that we got on that topic, I will end it by saying that Synergy is a multiplayer mod for the Half-Life 2 series. And
This is that bit at the end of the advert where they tell you what the hell you were just watching. It's like the small print at the bottom.
everybody's
Not
already tuned
gameplay
out.
footage. Not real gameplay. It doesn't look like this. It looks like it's on an Atari 2600.
I was expecting some chat poetry there. Not gonna lie.
That was as
Well,
well, yeah.
porcelain is only fragile.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That was quite a derail, even for us.
Yeah.
But it was also a pretty quick recovery in the end. I'm impressed.
Derail's
Jav is
the fun bit. Carry on.
Yeah. Jav is here today because he actually composed for us a brand new theme song that you have already heard at the front end of the
But I didn't
CoNcast.
hear it.
It's
Shut
in
up.
your mind, man. Also, you totally heard it before we started recording because I made sure
Yeah, I
that everybody
know,
listened to it
But I
again.
didn't hear
And
it at
stop
the beginning.
make
I'm making a joke about the fact that you overdubbed the music at the end, obviously.
dude, you can't do that. You're breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, but that's what makes it awesome, man. I'm like Zach Morris or something. The English dour Zach Morris. Oh, Kelly Kapowski. Would you be mine?
And then nobody gets that joke.
Oh,
I do.
seriously?
I'm old.
Everybody's got to get that joke.
TP
Nope.
won't. Yeah.
Oh,
Jav-
yeah, but you weren't allowed a television.
3 out of 4 isn't bad. I got the joke. I just didn't laugh.
Anybody old enough to visit Con and remember any of the games will understand who Zach Morris was.
And
I-
anybody
Kapowski, if
I
they
don't
were
have a good defense for myself.
who had really bad luck would remember who Zach Morris was from that College Years spinoff. That
I
was
don't
just
know,
the most
man.
god-awful piece of television. And they put it in prime time, like anybody was going to watch the Saved by the Bell people in prime. Wow,
Well-
we are really falling off the map. Yeah, okay, Jav, we got this new track from you, and it's actually really, really cool. And we're super proud that you took the time out to actually write something for this sort of thing that people kind of sort of listen to, at least, our families and people who loved us.
I don't tell my family.
Yeah, you know what? I don't either. My wife has walked in at the tail end of us recording a CoNcast before, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll be right there, hon. Nothing to see here.
You should make Kalen listen to these.
Well, someday.
Induct her into Con from an early age.
When I'm dead and gone, this will be what she has to remember me by. And she'll
If
be
you're
like, oh
listening
my
to
God,
this-
how am I well adjusted?
Hey,
If you're
Galen.
listening to this,
Hey,
I'm
Galen.
already dead.
What's up, girl?
Here's a Concast.
Jeff, if you live long enough for my daughter to make it to the age of majority, then I will be thoroughly impressed. So, wow, yeah, we're getting nowhere on this. This is amazing. So,
It's great. I love it.
Jeff,
Yes.
I want you to tell me a little bit about how you managed to come up with this, because I gave you pretty much no direction whatsoever.
Yeah, but that's usually how I work best, because when I have criteria, I tend to just kind of ignore it anyways. I mean, I went about it the same way I do most of my stuff. I just kind of sit down behind my computer and start messing around with different sounds until I find something, or like some kind of theme to tie everything together, and then I just build off that. In this case, like you guys were, doing a Final Fantasy themed CoNcast or whatever, so I wanted to make it kind of video game sounding a bit more than my other stuff. And so I sampled a lot of not really 8-bit tracks. I cheated a bit. I was using more Super Nintendo era stuff. But yeah, I sampled a lot of that and just kind of threw together something, and that's it.
Yeah, so you told me that a lot of it came from what? Final Fantasy VI and Star Ocean, I think you said?
Star Ocean is really just some of the more the drum beat, because I didn't want to use an actual drum machine for that. I think it would have made it sound a bit too not electronic, or like not 8-bit enough. I couldn't really transfer it over. Most of it actually came from Lufia.
Which is a series I've never played, so...
Yeah, I never played it either.
Same.
I played about 5 minutes of it, and I thought, man, these graphics look weird and
Yeah,
bad.
it
I'm never gonna
looked
play this again.
terrible, but those games were hard as hell, man. I'm telling
That's not appealing to me.
I feel like there's a couple people,
I'm
chat
sure
regulars that are
Lance has
playing
played 'em.
Lufia too.
I know
like,
Neil
as we
played it.
speak.
Oh, I don't know about currently, but I know Neil played at least one of them.
Yeah. I don't know if he's replaying it now or if he was just talking about the last time he played it, but I do remember seeing him say something about it quite recently.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen him talk about it.
Now, Tittles and DP, how do you feel about the new intro track? Tittles, I know that you're absolutely sick of me using Song Go to Chocobo, so...
Well, at least the problem is that was something nice I could complain about, and now this is pretty awesome, so I'm going to have to shut up about it, but
He needs to
it's a
find
great
new
track.
complaining.
If you'd like,
Yeah.
I can try to utilize this the dubstep breakdown in the middle of it, if that'll give you something new to complain
No,
about.
I mean, I even like, I don't hate dubstep on a few occasions where it's quite nicely done, and I certainly don't remember objecting to any of it in that track, so no, it's good. I think, as you mentioned the other day, it's got a bit of an Anamaguchi-ish sound here and there, and it also reminded me a bit of Cave Story in places. Just the tone gave me that kind of vibe, but probably for no particular satisfactory reason. But it's good. It's enjoyable. It's a music I heartily endorse and approve of, which you won't hear me say very often.
Yeah, that's the closest to a real Tittles compliment.
You're ever going to get, really.
There's definitely...
I mean, the thing I would say to this track, if I were talking to it, is the moon would be jealous of you, but it hides you in the darkness, unseen and untrue.
That's scary. You're getting way too good at this.
You've got to be running out at this point. There weren't that many of these.
Oh, there were
I
plenty.
bet he's got plenty.
The material is just, it never ends.
See,
I will
Fiddle's
say...
very good at inserting it, but the material is just, it's so adaptive in nature.
That's right.
It just
That's what I was
speaks to
saying.
so many different situations and emotions.
It's everything, man. It's life. It's life in this poetry.
And I have to say that there are certainly worse things that you could come up with than something that sounds like it could have come out of either A, the Cave Story soundtrack, or B, the Scott Pilgrim game soundtrack. That's fairly high praise, if you ask me.
That's good stuff. I mean, I listen to Another Winter on a loop for hours sometimes.
I mean,
Which
I'm just
reminds
glad
me-
it sounded video gamey, because that's all I really wanted.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
Yeah, very happy with how it turned out, and hopefully we'll get at least, I'm going to say 2 comments on the forums about how good it is. I'm going to go with 2.
We should do that at the end of every show. We should guess how many comments we're going to get on the forums. In the
I already did that, 2.
Yeah, I
God,
know,
you
but
don't
I'm
even listen.
What I'm saying is it'd be a good idea as a running thing.
Oh.
He said.
Oh, yeah.
Tittles doesn't listen that much to people anymore ever since Mike died.
I don't listen to all y'all.
It's gonna
I
be
do what I
fun
want.
on a bun. So yeah, since we're going with a little bit of a musical theme today, thanks to our new theme music, and thanks to Jav obviously being a musician quite clearly, since he
I could
created
sing
music for us.
Jav's poetry to the new theme tune.
I don't know, that kind of poetry seems like it should be more unaccompanied.
Or maybe get some bongos. Just
But the idea of me trying to sing anything is just kind of hilarious enough.
I've heard a rumor that Guile's theme goes with everything, so maybe
I have heard that.
maybe we get some YouTube videos up on the Con channel about that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the first topic that I actually want to hit is gaming ringtones. You know, back in the day, it used to be devilishly hard to create a ringtone that you could put on your phone. So everybody was really excited when they'd hear something that, somebody had done custom, and even more so if it was something that the other person recognized. Or even just, having your own phone go off in your pocket and you're like, oh yeah, I put that tune on there. That's awesome.
Did you guys used to have the old phones with the tone editors on them where you could sequence the beeps in order to make some music?
I never had a phone that was that good.
When you used to get the old beepy Nokias, they used to have a little tone editor and you could kind of make your own beepy stuff with them. I knocked out a couple of tracks from video games on those. I can't remember what they are, which is a bit of a shame for the podcast, but that's life.
Yeah. Once again, you're making things just slightly poorer by your presence.
Well, that's what I aim for.
But yeah, I mean, I remember the first time that I had to actually download software and hack into my phone in order to actually change the
Was that with
ringtones at
the
all.
Motorola?
Yeah, it was with my V3C Razr, which
Yeah.
was like my
Terrible
first like
phone.
cool
Nice.
cell phone.
Yeah, they really were.
And-
And you had
I
the
love
Con
my
logo
Razr.
on it and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
And the FFT
Nice.
music, yeah, I remember that.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
well, that's probably where I'll kick off here in a second. But yeah, that was that took a lot of doing to make that happen. And it's funny because up until very recently, it seems like, especially on American phones, they just make it very hard to let you do that on your own because obviously they want you to pay for such
Yeah.
things.
Your carriers are just even worse than our carriers. They're just the most awful people.
Well, yeah, they're terrible, terrible to work with. With the rise of the smartphone, they made it much harder to actually just completely lock somebody out of doing that. So I think, now is the time where people are doing this, completely unfettered, whether they're buying stuff and downloading it or making it on their own. It's really not that hard anymore. So
I guess that's how the Apple walled garden thing actually works, because compared to the rubbish you were exposed to with your previous carrier-locked phones, it actually looks really open.
well, yeah, you just gotta pay the fees and you get everything you want. It's great.
But
Yeah.
I think it's I think people have. I mean, I remember when I was before smartphones came out. I remember like a lot of my friends had ringtones that were from, like whatever popular song, and they wouldn't have edited them themselves. It would have been somebody had, bought it or edited it, and then it just
Yeah.
gotten passed along all over the place. And I remember that being fairly common. But now that smartphones are kind of par for the course, I haven't seen nearly as much of that. I don't know if that's you guys as well, but like thinking through my friends now, like none of them have custom ringtones, and I wonder if that might just be because now that there's so much to do on your phone, you don't care so much about personalizing the ringtone.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know.
the
I still see a lot
novelties.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's probably a bit less than there used to be. I think to some extent the novelty's worn off a little compared to, when everybody gets their first phone and they really want to be like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. I want this to be a perfect extension of me and my soul. And then after a while, it's just like, it's another phone.
yeah.
Put my contacts on it, get on with life.
Yeah, I think you
Play
guys
some
are
Angry
both right.
Birds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think you're right. I think it is probably something that's a little less interesting now to a lot of people. But there's still people that are getting their first phone or their first good phone pretty
Yeah.
much every day. So it's kind of the cycle never really ends. It's just a matter of how much time you're able to put into it before you start to get bored doing
Well, I
the
think-
3 or 4 steps.
I think people have also started to kind of realize it's a bit obnoxious sometimes. And, there's more kind of just vibration these days as well. And people have just gone,
Yeah.
what? Having an audible ringtone is so, yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to get a little obnoxious, especially with a lot of them. But why don't we pretend that is not the case, and that people actually want the ringtones that we're about to talk about?
Yeah!
Because otherwise this
Really.
podcast is going to be really short, and while that may be what a lot of people want, that's not what we're going to do, because screw those people. So, you guys mentioned earlier, and the very first ringtones that I ever put on one of my phones were from Final Fantasy Tactics, and those have kind of carried over since then. I did both the Mission Complete music from FFT and also the Victory fanfare from FFT. And both of those are awesome because they're really short and they're things that I could cut down very easily and make into a ringtone. Because people that have ringtones that are an entire song, I just want to smack those people. It doesn't matter what the song is. It's just like, why did you put a 4-minute ringtone on your phone? Because you're
Yeah.
never going to hear all that, and nobody else wants to hear it either.
That said, though, the problem I find with having a long track as a ringtone is not so much the overall length, but the fact that the actual bit of it you'll hear is the
Yeah.
intro build-up that just isn't the interesting or recognizable bit of the track at all. But in a way, I'd rather have one, as long as it's sensibly cut, that's quite long, than have something that over the 45 seconds it might be playing just loops itself. Because that is one of the most obnoxious things you are going to hear on somebody's ringtone is the same bit of music 15 times. Exactly.
I kind of think it depends on, how the music loops and how well it loops. I think it's possible to do some that,
or
actually
how much
do
there
well.
is to loop in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and also the fact that, like you mentioned, Tittles, I think my iPhone starts to cut it off at 30 seconds. So if you do a song that doesn't loop properly, either, in less than 30 seconds or on 30 seconds, then you're going to end up with something that really does great on both you and everyone around you pretty quickly.
Well, I think the key is kind of the quality of the loop. I don't mind something that's short and loops, but it loops sensibly, as in it's not just some segment of something or a really quick kind of snappy fan. If you had like the normal Final Fantasy fanfare and you just heard that 10 times, that would make me want to throw the phone out of the window.
Yeah.
But if you had something short, I mean, one thing I've done, it's not Final Fantasy, but I've used the Sonic 3 Invincibility music, which everyone hates because it's way too short and repetitive. But actually, that kind of works as a ringtone because you're not going to hear it repeat that many times, and the loop actually works, as in it flows between, it flows like a normal video game track would loop. So it kind of works okay in a way that kind of just a little fanfare that lasts 2 seconds and then starts from scratch again wouldn't necessarily.
Let me tell you guys about something that will want to make you throw your phone out the window.
I knew it had to show up sometime.
Because for the longest time, my text message and email notification was Navi. And
oh, yeah.
Yep.
It would just shout at me, hey, hello, listen, every time. But not once, but like 2 or 3 times per message. So my phone was always screaming at me.
And not only that, but it was usually screaming at us too, because these were the days where there were also usually several of us in TeamSpeak playing a game together at any one time. And
I'm getting misty-eyed just thinking about it.
Yeah, and we could just hear like a little muffled fairy coming through our speakers.
If I could have muffled that, believe me, I would have. It was.
You should have.
I don't know why I did it to myself. I really don't.
I like that Tittles mentioned the fanfare because I have 2 things to say about that. One is that everybody who likes Final Fantasy seems to use the fanfare on their phone at some point, which is absolutely insane because we're talking about, more than 15 games when you wrap up, all of the side games and all that stuff. And so many of them have just amazing music that people just limit themselves to the fanfare and then they don't go any further, which is kind of sad. And also because now that people have text tones, the fanfare makes such a much better text tone for the reasons that Tittles just said. You can hear like the first 5 seconds, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and that's it.
Yep.
Cut it off there, and you're done.
But
it's
let
perfect.
me say this. If you're on a train and you're having a text conversation and I hear that noise throughout the entire journey, I am going to cut you. I'm going to cut you deep.
Wait, so you're not going to take that opportunity to make a new friend and be like, dude, nice text tone?
Dude, shut up on the train.
Wait, what if it's an attractive female?
Then he won't say anything to her at all. He'll just kind of sigh.
You know me so well.
It's
like
brutal and
my
it's
soul.
I actually had last summer. I actually had my ringtone as Besaid from Final Fantasy X-2.
Of course you do.
Yeah, 10-2, of course.
Not Fisherman's Horizon.
I should have done that. Maybe I'll do that for this summer. But just because I don't, because during the academic year, I always just have it on vibrate. But during summer, I start feeling creative and summery and such. And so that's why Besaid being a very summery feeling song is why that was the choice that was made of all the different Final Fantasy songs I could have.
I'm DP and I take music from all the worst Final Fantasies that ever happened.
Okay, pause. However not good Final Fantasy X-2 was, you cannot deny that Besaid was a very good song.
Yeah, but you could have taken it from 10. That would have been fine.
It's a different one, though.
Oh, well then you. I mean,
Besaid.
Mark!
No, there are two different ones. I think the one in
That's right,
10.2 is better, personally.
in my
You
mind,
would.
I'm throwing you off a bridge.
Well, come on, it's a good song.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of goes to my overall point, though. It's kind of a different strokes sort of thing, where you
Fanar.
and hundreds and hundreds, hundreds and hundreds of tracks, Jav, and if you're gonna go that route, there's so many. I was looking through just some YouTube playlists to come up with something when we were getting ready to record, and the very first thing I stopped on was actually from Final Fantasy 13. It's the main battle song, "Blinded
Oh,
by
that's
Light."
so good.
It's
Yeah.
so good, and it's one of those things where you could very easily wrap it very badly, and the loop would be very obnoxious after about 5 minutes. But it's also such an awesome track, and you could do the same thing for several things from 13 too. Though I don't have any of them in front of me right this second to say, but as the games got older, or older, I suppose, newer as we got older.
What?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to edit that.
Do another
Usually-
winger speech.
And usually when I say that I'm going to edit it means that I
Don't.
usually don't edit it and leave it in there because I enjoy the fact that I embarrass myself in
Yeah.
that way. And
We
I
do
just leave it.
too.
Yeah. But yeah, there's plenty of tracks from the newer games in the series that are pretty okay and make fun and interesting ringtones, and they're ones that may actually get noticed because let's face it, if you're doing these things, it's not solely to please yourself, because a lot of times you will have the phone on vibrate or whatever.
And that's to please yourself.
You left that one open, man.
Well played. But yeah, you do want other people to hear it at least once, and you want people to say, "Oh, cool, what's that from?" And people are gonna, in theory, recognize. You have a bigger chance of having somebody recognize something that's from either one of the most famous games in the series or from one of the newer ones.
If you want someone to recognize it, frankly, you're not going to put Final Fantasy music on it these days. But
Well, the
I don't know,
fanfare is very iconic.
the fanfare maybe, but modern Final Fantasy is, it has a niche, but it's not something that's going to be widely recognizable. But let me say this. You say you want other people to hear and recognize it, but I don't know, it probably says more about my psyche than anything else. But normally what happens when I actually put a custom ringtone on my phone is the first time it actually comes out, I just get really embarrassed.
Yeah.
Just try to turn it off as soon as
It sounded
possible.
like such a good idea while you're sitting by yourself at home, and then you're out in public and it goes off, and you're like, "Oh,
Wow, this actually sounds kind of
Yeah.
gay.
yeah,
I'm talking about. I just started a dance party.
I'm a pretty dork. I'm a pretty big dork."
Yeah, I always forget that I've changed it, and I hear it ringing. I'm like, "Oh, cool, that's a nice ringtone."
Yeah, somebody's got a
Like-
really cool ringtone.
Oh wait, no, that's me. Crap.
Well, see, my problem with that is that I only have like 3 people that actually call me ever. So for me, I'm gonna hear it, and eventually I have to just start playing it to myself, or else I'll never hear it. Because I'm
Actually, what I
sad.
do now is I put a ringtone on it and say, right, I've got my own personal ringtone. Now to put the phone on silent and never take it off. That's
but it-
pretty much how it goes now.
You still know, and
You still
feel
know,
cool.
man. You still know. You can still feel it.
I actually don't have any Final Fantasy ringtones on my phone right now at all, as it turns out. Yeah, I just checked, and apparently any that I did have were wiped at some point. But
Shame on
I
you.
have 2 because for some reason I find the Final Fantasy 1 soundtrack to be among my favorites of the entire series, and I don't know if that's just because it's simple or what. But 2 that I have on there, or I would have on there, are the Chaos Battle, which I used for, I believe, an outro or an intro on one of the very early recordings, and also Matoya's Cave, which is possibly my favorite Final Fantasy track of all, ever.
Yeah, it's a pretty damn good one.
Matoya's
It's a very
Cave
good track,
strangely reminds me of the intro to Donkey Kong Country for no apparent reason.
That's because
Just
you're
something
drunk.
about, well, quite possibly.
Actually, it's not Final Fantasy, but my current ringtone is and then it just doesn't play.
That's
There we go.
Great.
But I'm one of those guys that has the full, song, like, just to drive Josh crazy. Anyways, it's Delightful Specchio.
Whenever I hear that, I always
what was
think
that,
of...
Jav?
It's Delightful Specchio from Chrono Trigger.
Oh, okay. I couldn't really hear it.
Yeah,
Whenever I hear that, I just think of playing Left 4 Dead with Neil playing that in the background. Just the most inappropriate soundtrack to a zombie game you could ever possibly imagine. Apart from Walking on Sunshine, which someone else played while we were playing once.
I had the
which would also be a pretty fun ringtone.
That's perfect.
I still have the Starman theme replacing the tank music, so it's kind of hilarious. That
works pretty well. The non-Final Fantasy one I've used, because I haven't really used many Final Fantasy ones, so shoot me. But, well, we already said that Guile's theme goes with everything, but what part of Guile's theme particularly goes with a ringtone is, I think, the heavy damage version, if you've ever heard that, and perhaps you'll be able to hear it, or perhaps you'll be able to look for it yourself, but in the arcade versions of Street Fighter, because you might not realize if you only played them on the SNES, when you're near to a knockout, you get a different version of each character's music, and Guile's one works pretty well as a ringtone loop, if you ask me. Because it goes with everything, as you know.
Ah.
Well, there you have it.
Well, that settles that.
Yeah.
Well, let me talk about what I actually have on my phone now. For me, my received notification for text and email is opening of the orange portal, and then for sending of the same, it's the blue portal.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
So,
wait, you have a sound for sending texts?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
iPhone. I'm sure it's a thing on everything.
Oh, do you know what I did have? Do you remember a few years ago I used to have
like
a
an
slider.
Unnecessary noise.
You're an unnecessary noise.
I was just going to say that.
Man.
I was actually just going to... Wow.
So remember a few years ago I had a slider phone, and you could set a sound to play when it slid up and slid down, and I actually used the Mario sound effects for getting a mushroom and then getting powered down.
Nice.
That worked so
That's fantastic.
That's very good.
But yeah, to go with that, because like I said, this is a huge package of stuff. Yeah, seriously, that was, oh boy. Yeah.
Right out there.
For when my wife calls me, I actually have the Turret Wife Serenade track
Nice.
from Portal 2.
So what you're saying is your wife has a huge package?
I'm not sure how you quite got there, but whatever, yeah. But since we're on the topic of non-Final Fantasy, non-Final Fantasy at least, I was kind of just trolling around YouTube earlier for a few things, and I don't actually have these linked right now to send to you guys, unfortunately. I think I must have them on my other computer. But I wanted to throw out 4 quick games that have just unending potential for ringtoning. And, maybe Jav, you or I, or both of us could get together and maybe cut up a few ringtones from these games, or all of the games, just to throw somewhere where people can actually hear what we're talking about here. But those 4 games, going to do them in rapid succession. First one, sticking with Squenix, the original Parasite Eve, especially the battle theme, has just great music and would make a really awesome ringtone. 2 more, Capcom NES games, because Capcom did just ridiculously good music back in the NES days, and obviously continue to do so, as Tittles just mentioned with Guile's theme. But the NES DuckTales, and
nice.
And my personal favorite of the series is Mega Man 2, and that has 5 or 6 songs that are just awesome.
I can think of pretty much any Mega Man game just having really cool ringtone songs.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 is my favorite, but you could go anywhere from, they did 6 on the NES?
I love the Willy's Castle music from 2. That's amazing.
I'm sorry, Willie's?
Dr. Willy. Is that not how you say it?
Oh, no, well,
No.
I suppose it will be now, but I'm going to be ashamed of myself every time I do. And the last game is one that I have made, or I've tried to make everybody on Con play at some time or another, and Tittles probably is going to figure out where I'm going with this right away because I made him play it at some point in co-op. Gonna give you a second.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Fill in my sentence.
River City Ransom.
Yes, absolutely. Not only does it have some great, very short and easily repeated tracks throughout. I think the whole soundtrack only has like 14 tracks, but it has the simply greatest version of the Double Dragon theme that I've ever heard on it. And, that is just, it's great music in general, but this version of it in particular is fantastic. And it's really clever how it gets in there because Technos, the game, or the company that produced River City Ransom, also had their hands in Double Dragon. So for River City Ransom, they had a boss called the Dragon Twins, and that theme is just absolutely fantastic.
I like it.
It's good.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty badass, actually, though.
Hopefully you guys have been YouTubing those things while I've been prattling on for 2 solid minutes.
Well, I just looked up the River City Ransom one, so
Nice.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So, yeah. Any of you other guys have any non-Squenix games that just leap out to you as things that you would want to have on your phone before we wrap up this segment?
I was gonna say there's a couple others that I could probably think of from Final Fantasy 13, but the jazzier ones, some of the more jazzy, upbeat ones there. But I was gonna say a couple of the songs from Grandia almost strike me like they'd be fairly good, like Delightful Adventure or something. Would be one that I would. Yeah, I was listening to that the other day, and we'd already discussed sort of things that we might talk about for this CoNcast, and I was listening to it, and I thought, that might be one to consider.
It sounded kind of like you were listening to it right there with you trailing off into nothingness.
No, that's just me. I have no good excuse, unfortunately.
Reading a book while you're podcasting.
You should just cut whenever I talk.
Tempting.
Oh, I do. Trust me.
Yeah.
I cut you liberally.
I know I use a lot of Phoenix Wright stuff, so I guess it's still Capcom, but I use a lot of Phoenix Wright stuff for ringtone messages and emails and stuff. I also use a lot of Persona stuff lately. I don't know if anyone else has played those, but those are some fun
if
RPGs.
Laz were here.
Yeah, I know he was playing 4 recently. They're really good RPGs, like much better than the standard you've been getting out of JRPGs over the last couple of years. But I think that's because they're PS2 era stuff that are only just now getting remade. But man, their soundtracks, phenomenal.
I haven't played Phoenix Wright, but I keep hearing bits of music from it, and there's some really great stuff in there. Stuff that really appeals to me. So, maybe I should get on that sometime, or
That's
just keep listening to random tracks.
Yeah, that's Capcom. They always do really good music, even if the game itself, DLC,
Yeah.
DLC.
More soundtracks as DLC.
You could buy the game, but the soundtracks won't be unlocked until you pay for the DLC. Mark my words, that's going to be next.
You have to play in just silence.
Yeah, silence. Oof.
It's ambient.
That's so postmodern.
I already gave you Guile's theme as my external choice. Ken's
Yeah.
heavy damage theme from SF2 is also pretty great. And as I say, Sonic 3, the Invincibility, and the mini-boss theme is pretty great for a ringtone, very Michael Jackson-esque. But probably my main choice is, Mario's Invincibility is also it's repetitive, but it's kind of one of those things you don't mind repeating too much, particularly if you went for something like the Yoshi's Island or Mario 64 versions that actually have a bit of a melody on top that doesn't repeat quite as badly as the bass line. So,
that's something that is kind of cool with series that have been running for a really long time. Is that eventually you get kind of these more upgraded versions as the capabilities of the systems come along, and it gives you some variety to work with.
Yeah, the history of Mario's invincibility theme is just great. There's so many awesome variants of that over the years.
I don't know. I like this first album, but I think everything after that just sounded kind of bad. I don't know. Everyone started listening to it, and it just got too mainstream for me.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just he sold out, man. He sold out. Putting a melody on top. I don't know what he was thinking.
Wow, I really can't believe that the topic of ringtones, Final Fantasy and otherwise, actually filled up most of a podcast for us. That's pretty impressive and pretty sad, and hopefully everybody didn't tune out 25 minutes ago, because, yeah.
Oh, I'd say more like 30.
Good.
I'm gonna call
Well,
it
that
15.
gives us less work to do in actually cutting up some ringtones, because if nobody heard half of the podcast where we were talking about the ringtones, then we don't have to do any extra work. And that's
Hooray!
awesome. Yay, we
Fiddles
get to
and
be
I were
lazy.
never going to do any extra work, so.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. And Jav's going to be working his 70 hours a week, so he probably won't have time to do many either. So once again, it all gets laid on the back of poor Josh.
Yay!
That being said, let's call it a day so I can get started on editing all that stuff and still have time to get this CoNcast out on time. Guys, it's been fantastic again, hanging out. And yeah, say your goodbyes now.
Bye, everyone.
Until next time, I want you to remember this thought. Dance in acid rain, where angels dare not glance. And I'd love you, I'd break you, and cast down your shattered crown.
And on that note,
To be fair,
Go on.
I
yeah,
can't even
I
think
think
of
that was
anything to say to that. I'm just so moved by
I
my
was just
own work.
hoping the acid rain would come. I was just hoping that would come. My hopes were answered.
well, Jav, thank you
Why did I
again.
actually do this?
Well, because you love us.
We love
Thank you again very much for both producing that new track for us, which again is fantastic. And we'll definitely get a link up to the full version somewhere so everybody can hear it in its full glory. But thank you also for allowing us to bludgeon you with history of 10 plus years ago. Hopefully you'll come on again sometime and we can talk about music some more. And at that point, maybe we'll have less to mock you for since we got it all over systems this time around.
I don't know. I feel
Or
like
we
that should turn into a running joke. I think Tillis should just only ever answer things in poetry.
Yeah. I'm sure
It loses some of the impact if you're not here, though.
I'm sure we can find some photos of you as a baby naked on a rug or something if you want more embarrassment.
I'm just gonna say con nips and leave it at that.
As a baby, we could only find them as a baby.
Well, yeah, Jeff.
I suspect that something exists already that I don't want to see that's much more recent.
Yeah, there's my whole Facebook. But that
Yes.
pleasure being here. Good times.
Yeah, glad to have it. It feels a lot like how we used to be a few years ago when we actually all had time to game together more. Good stuff.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. All right, thanks again to all three of you and to everybody who's listening to this and everybody that had put up with one of my pet topics, which maybe is not the most exciting CoNcast topic we ever covered, but I'm glad that I got it out of my system. So we'll see you guys again in another couple weeks, and have a good time until then.
Cheerio. Souls might burn together.
Good news, everyone. You've reached the end of another CoNcast. If you're looking for us online, you can find us at cavesofnarsh.com, facebook.com/cavesofnarsh, twitter.com/cavesofnarsh, or on YouTube with the username Caves of Narsh. We'll be posting some samples of some of the ringtones that we talked about today, and also the full version of Jav's intro track. Speaking of which, that intro track kicked off the session today, and it is called Neko Neko Mawai. And we're ending today with the new origin, the ending theme from Final Fantasy V. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.